In the heart of a fog-shrouded forest stood Windmere Asylum, a crumbling structure once home to the region's most troubled souls. After it closed in the late 1970s, dark tales of its past spread like wildfire, stories of experimental treatments, vanished patients, and whispers of a vengeful spirit. A documentary crew decided to uncover the truth behind the legends, consisting of ambitious filmmaker Ava, skeptical historian Tom, tech-savvy Ellie, and brave sound engineer Jake. On the night of the shoot, a thick mist clung to the ground as they arrived, the moonlight casting eerie shadows on the asylum's decaying facade. As they set up their cameras, the atmosphere grew heavy with anticipation and unease. With each creak of the floorboards, they felt the weight of the asylum's dark history pressing down on them. They began their investigation in the main hall, where the flickering lights added to the ominous ambience. Ellie set up motion sensors while Jake captured sound with his equipment. They soon stumbled upon a series of patient files that detailed horrific treatments, lobotomies, and electroshock therapies that left many in torment. As they delved deeper, strange occurrences began. Ellie's motion sensors triggered without explanation, and disembodied whispers echoed through the halls. Tom, intrigued, suggested they conduct an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, session. As they settled in a dimly lit room, they asked questions, hoping for a response. "Is anyone here with us?" Ava called out. The air grew cold, and suddenly, a faint voice crackled through the static. "Help us." Startled, they exchanged glances, adrenaline surging. They pressed on, determined to find out more. As they navigated the asylum's winding corridors, they stumbled upon a locked door marked "Restricted Area." With a bit of force, they managed to pry it open, revealing a dark stairwell leading down. Ava led the way, flashlight in hand, as they descended into the bowels of the asylum. The atmosphere shifted. It felt like they were being watched. At the bottom, they found a small room filled with rusted medical equipment and an old, cracked mirror. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them, trapping them inside. Panic set in. "What's going on?" Jake shouted, banging on the door. But it wouldn't budge. Just then, the mirror began to shimmer, and the crew saw figures emerging, ghostly apparitions of the asylum's former patients, their faces twisted in anguish. "They need our help," Ava yelled, realizing the spirits were trapped by the horrific treatments they endured. The crew huddled together, deciding they needed to communicate with the spirits to set them free. They returned to the mirror, asking for the spirits to show them what happened. As they focused, the mirror displayed vivid scenes of the asylum's past. Patients being subjected to cruel experiments, their screams echoing in the dark halls. The crew felt the weight of their suffering, and in that moment, they understood the only way to free the spirits was to expose the asylum's dark history. They gathered their courage, and Jake used his camera to film the mirror's images, capturing the pain and torment. As they recorded, the room shook violently, and the spirits screamed in unison, "Free us!" Suddenly, the door flung open, and they bolted back to the main hall, heart racing. With the footage secured, they made their way outside just as dawn broke, the mist lifting. They knew they had to share their findings with the world, bringing the asylum's dark past to light. As they left Windmere Asylum, they felt a profound sense of relief, knowing they had given a voice to the forgotten souls. But as they glanced back, they saw shadows lingering in the windows, watching them leave reminders that while they had helped some, the spirits of Windmere would always linger, waiting for their stories to be told. As the crew drove away from Windmere Asylum, a sense of accomplishment mingled with unease. Ava couldn't shake the feeling that their work was far from over. The shadows they had glimpsed in the windows felt like unfinished business, haunting her thoughts. Later that evening, they gathered at Ava's apartment to review the footage. The atmosphere was electric with excitement as they set up the projector, each of them eager to see the chilling moments they had captured. As the first images flickered to life on the wall, their laughter faded, replaced by a palpable tension. The scenes played out: the asylum's dark corridors, the anguished faces of the patients, and the echoing cries that seemed to resonate even through the film. But then, As they reached the moment of their EVP session, something unexpected happened. A dark shadow flickered at the edge of the frame, and a soft, sorrowful voice whispered, "You must return, before it's too late." The room fell silent, and the air thickened. Tom leaned closer to the screen, his brow furrowing. "Did you hear that?" he asked, glancing around at his friends, who nodded, wide-eyed. Before they could process what they had just witnessed, Jake's equipment suddenly began to malfunction. The lights flickered, and the sound levels spiked erratically. Panic surged as they realized their cameras were capturing more than just the asylum's past. They were now entangled in its haunting presence. "I think we need to go back," Ava said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The spirits are trying to tell us something." Tom hesitated, but the others exchanged determined glances. They couldn't ignore the urgency in the voice. "Let's get some supplies and head back," Lucas said, already grabbing his gear. They drove back to the asylum under the cover of night, armed with flashlights, cameras, and a resolve to uncover whatever secrets remained hidden. As they approached the entrance, the manor loomed even larger, shadows flickering in the moonlight as if welcoming them back. Stepping inside, they felt the familiar chill that had enveloped them before. The air was electric, charged with an intensity that set their nerves on edge. As they made their way to the main hall, Ava felt a tugging sensation, as though the building itself was pulling them toward the basement. "This way," she urged, leading them down the corridor. The shadows danced around them, and the air thickened with a sense of urgency. They reached the door to the restricted area, and this time it opened without resistance, as if inviting them in. As they descended the stairs, the atmosphere grew heavier. They arrived in the small room with the cracked mirror, now seemingly more alive than before. The mirror's surface shimmered, and they could see the faint outlines of the spirits pressing against it, their faces contorted in desperation. "What do you want from us?" Ava called out, her voice shaking but firm. In response, the mirror began to swirl, revealing the faces of the patients, their eyes pleading. "Save us," one of them cried, and the others echoed in unison. "Break the curse." The crew exchanged glances, realization dawning on them. The asylum's secrets were deeper than they had imagined. They needed to find a way to truly release the spirits, to confront the source of the darkness that bound them. Suddenly, the room erupted in chaos. The lights flickered wildly, and a gust of wind surged through the space, knocking over equipment. A voice boomed through the cacophony. "You dare disturb our rest?" Ava stepped forward, heart racing. "We want to help you. We want to tell your story." But the spirits screamed, and the mirror shattered with a deafening crash. Glass shards scattered like stars across the floor, and a thick darkness seeped from the broken mirror, swirling around them. Desperate, Tom grabbed a shard of the mirror, holding it up like a shield. "We need to confront the betrayal, the fire." It all started there. As they huddled together, they knew they had to go back to the scene of the tragedy. The remaining remnants of the asylum's dark past were calling them back to the very heart of the horror. "Let's find the source," Ava urged, her voice strong despite the fear coursing through her. Together, they ventured into the darkened hallways, each step echoing with the weight of history and desperation. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. As the crew pressed deeper into the bowels of Windmere Asylum, the atmosphere thickened, each corridor heavier than the last. Flickering lights cast elongated shadows that seemed to reach for them, and the whispers grew more insistent, swirling around them like a tempest of grief and anger. "Where do we go?" Jake asked, glancing nervously down the dark hallways. "Follow the screams," Ava said, her heart racing. "They'll lead us to the truth." The group moved cautiously, driven by a mixture of fear and determination. As they reached a long-abandoned patient ward, they heard a soft sobbing echoing through the air. Ava's instincts kicked in. "This way." She turned, leading them toward the sound. The ward was a grim reminder of the asylum's dark history. Rusted bed frames lay toppled, and faded medical equipment littered the floor. The sobbing grew louder, more anguished, until they arrived at a door that stood slightly ajar. Taking a deep breath, Ava pushed it open, revealing a small room that looked like a makeshift examination chamber. In the center, a dusty table held remnants of forgotten tools, but it was the sight on the floor that froze them in place. A withered doll, its glassy eyes staring up at them, as if waiting for someone to play. Suddenly, the sobbing stopped, replaced by an oppressive silence. The air grew colder, and a figure appeared in the corner of the room, a girl, no older than 10, with tangled hair and a tattered dress. Her eyes were filled with unshed tears, and she looked directly at them. "Help me," she whimpered, her voice trembling. "I'm lost. Who are you?" Ava asked softly, kneeling down to the girl's level. "I'm Lily," the ghost replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was forgotten here. They took me away, and I never came back." Realization struck Ava. "You're one of the patients. What happened to you?" Lily's gaze darkened. "They said I was sick. They did terrible things. But I just wanted to go home." The friends exchanged worried glances. They had to dig deeper. "Lily, can you show us where they took you?" Tom asked gently, hoping to guide her toward the truth. The girl nodded, her expression shifting to one of hope. "The basement, where the fire started." As they followed her, the crew felt a surge of determination. They had to confront the darkness that had claimed Lily and so many others. Down the winding corridors, they followed the flickering lights that seemed to pulse with urgency, leading them toward the bowels of the asylum. Finally, they arrived at a heavy door marked "Experimental Procedures." Ava hesitated, the weight of history pressing down on her. But Lily stood by, encouraging her with a gentle nod. They pushed the door open, revealing a grim sight. The walls were lined with faded photographs and charts of patients, their faces blank and lost. In the center, a large room contained remnants of the inhumane practices that had taken place: rusted tables, restraining straps, and shattered glass. As they stepped inside, a sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut behind them, plunging the room into darkness. Panic set in as they fumbled for their flashlights, but the shadows began to swirl, coalescing into the shape of the asylum's cruel head doctor, his expression twisted with malice. "Why do you disturb my work?" he thundered, his voice echoing like thunder. "You should not have come here. We're here to help the lost." Ava shouted back, her voice strong despite the fear tightening her chest. The doctor laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down their spines. "You think you can save them? They are mine now, forever bound to this place." Lily stepped forward, her spirit flickering like a candle in the wind. "You can't keep us. We deserve to be free." The shadows surged toward her, but the crew quickly gathered around Lily, forming a protective circle. Ava's heart raced as she remembered the journal's mention of breaking the curse. It required confronting the betrayal and allowing the spirits to speak their truth. "Let us tell your story," Ava pleaded, raising her voice above the chaos. "Let us expose what you did here." The doctor's expression soured, but the shadows hesitated, sensing the resolve of the living. "You think mere words can break my hold?" he spat, but doubt crept into his voice. Tom stepped forward, holding up the camera. "We have proof. We'll share the truth with the world." As the doctor raged, the room began to tremble, the walls vibrating with the energy of the spirits. The air grew thick with anguish, and the crew felt the pressure building, the darkness threatening to engulf them. "Stay together," Jake shouted as the shadows writhed around them, trying to pull them apart. With renewed determination, Ava called out, "Lily, we need your strength. Speak your truth." Lily's spirit glowed brighter, and she raised her arms, her voice rising above the chaos. "We were innocent. We were betrayed. We deserve to be heard." As her words filled the room, the darkness writhed violently, and the doctor's form began to flicker. The air crackled with energy, and the spirits of the other patients began to materialize beside Lily, their voices joining in a haunting chorus. "Free us! Free us!" they cried, their collective anguish pouring forth. The doctor's face twisted in rage and fear as the power of the spirits swelled around them. The crew held their ground, knowing they were on the brink of breaking the curse. Suddenly, A blinding light erupted from the mirror shard in Tom's hand, illuminating the room and casting away the darkness. The doctor howled in pain as the light enveloped him, and with one final desperate scream, he was consumed by the brilliance. As the blinding light engulfed the room, the shadows writhed and twisted, battling against the illumination. The spirits of the patients surged forward, their faces filled with both desperation and hope. Ava and her friends stood resolute, feeling the energy of their collective while pushing against the remnants of the darkness. "Keep going," Jake shouted, the beam of light intensifying as they focused on the spirits' voices. "We have to break the curse." The room shook violently, and as the doctor's form dissipated into the light, Ava felt a surge of warmth enveloping her, as if the spirits were drawing strength from her resolve. "Lily," she cried, her heart racing. "Tell us how to free everyone." "Remember the fire," Lily's voice echoed, clear and strong. "It holds the key to our freedom." With renewed determination, Ava concentrated on the memories swirling in the light. She could see flashes of the past, the night of the fire, the chaos, the screams, and the betrayal that had sealed the fate of so many. "Where did it start?" Tom yelled, battling against the oppressive energy in the room. "Where was the betrayal?" Lily pointed toward a corner of the room, where a wall seemed to ripple like a mirage. "Behind the wall. The truth is buried there." Ava nodded, heart pounding. They had to reach the source of the betrayal to expose it for what it was. "We need to break down that wall." With one mind, the crew rushed toward the corner. They began to push against it, the energy of the spirits lending them strength. As they pressed harder, cracks appeared in the wall, splintering like ice under pressure. The air crackled with anticipation, and the spirits surrounded them, their voices rising in a crescendo of hope and anger. "Free us! Free us!" they cried, as the wall began to crumble. With one final push, the wall collapsed, revealing a hidden room filled with old documents, photographs, and remnants of the asylum's dark past. In the center, an old journal lay open, the pages yellowed with age, detailing the nefarious experiments conducted by the head doctor, a meticulously kept record of the horrors that had unfolded. As Ava reached for the journal, the temperature plummeted, and the shadows lunged, trying to reclaim their hold. "Hold on," Lucas shouted, grabbing her arm. "We have to show the world." Ava nodded, clutching the journal tightly. "This is it. This is the evidence we need." The room erupted in chaos as the spirits surged forward, merging their energy with Ava's resolve. The air pulsed with power, and the shadows twisted in agony, sensing their grip on the asylum weakening. "Now, let's expose the truth," Ava shouted, her voice filled with determination. She and her friends aimed their cameras at the journal, capturing every detail, every horrifying account of the inhumane practices that had taken place. The spirits gathered around them, their faces radiant with hope. But as they filmed, a cold, sinister voice echoed from the depths of the shadows. "You think you can escape my grasp?" It was the doctor's voice, now a mere echo but filled with malevolence. "You will join them in suffering." Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble, and the walls shook violently. The very foundation of the asylum seemed to rebel against their presence. Ava's heart raced as the shadows coiled around her, trying to pull her back into the darkness. "Don't let go," she shouted, gripping the journal tightly. Just then, Lily stepped forward, her spirit glowing brighter than ever. "We won't let them take you. You've shown us the way." The other spirits joined her, their forms intertwining with the light, creating a barrier against the encroaching darkness. They began to chant, their voices harmonizing in a powerful incantation that filled the room with a radiant glow. "Together we are free. Together we are strong." As their voices crescendoed, the shadows writhed and screamed, losing their form against the overwhelming light. Ava felt the weight of the spirits behind her, pushing forward, their energy blending with her own. In that moment, she understood the true power of their unity. "We're not just telling your story, we're breaking the chains," she cried. The light expanded, engulfing the room in a brilliant flash, and as it did, the shadows dissolved into nothingness, the doctor's malevolent laughter replaced by anguished cries that faded into the ether. The room quaked as the dark energy was expelled, the spirits finally breaking free from their torment. With one final burst of light, everything fell silent. As the brilliant light faded, the crew found themselves standing in the remnants of the hidden room, the oppressive atmosphere lifting like a heavy fog. The shadows that once threatened them had vanished, leaving behind a serene stillness. Ava blinked in the afterglow, feeling the warmth of the spirits surrounding them, their faces no longer twisted in anguish but now peaceful and radiant. Lily stepped forward, her spirit glowing brighter than ever. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "You freed us." The crew shared relieved smiles, tears of joy welling in their eyes. They had faced unimaginable darkness and emerged victorious. "Now you must tell our story," Lily continued, her expression earnest. "Share the truth about what happened here. Make sure no one forgets us." "We will," Tom promised, clutching the journal. "We'll expose everything. The world needs to know." As Lily and the other spirits began to fade, Ava felt a profound sense of connection. "Will you be okay now?" she asked, her voice trembling. Lily smiled gently. "We are finally free. Thank you for listening." With that, the spirits vanished, leaving behind a soft glow that lingered in the air. The oppressive energy that had filled the asylum for decades had dissipated, replaced by an overwhelming sense of peace. As the crew emerged from the asylum into the dawn light, they felt as though a weight had been lifted from their shoulders. The sun broke through the mist, illuminating the once foreboding building. It looked almost beautiful now, a stark contrast to the horrors that had unfolded within. "Let's get this footage edited and shared," Ava said, her resolve stronger than ever. "We need to honor their memory." They returned to the city, pouring their hearts into the documentary. As they edited the footage, they interwove the stories of the spirits with the historical accounts of the asylum's dark past. They made sure to include the journal's revelations, detailing the inhumane experiments and the tragic fate of the patients. The film premiered at a local festival, capturing the attention of both the audience and the media. People were moved by the haunting stories and the courage of those who had suffered within the asylum's walls. The truth began to spread, igniting a conversation about mental health and the ethical treatment of patients. Months later, as they sat together in Ava's apartment, they watched the reactions to their documentary. News outlets were picking up the story, and people were advocating for the asylum to be preserved as a memorial, a place to honor the lost souls and to educate others about the importance of compassion in mental health care. But even amidst their success, Ava couldn't shake the feeling that their journey wasn't entirely over. One night, as she reviewed the footage again, she noticed something strange, a fleeting shadow in the corner of one of the frames, a hint of light flickering before it disappeared. "Do you think?" she murmured, turning to her friends. "Maybe they're still watching over us," Tom replied, a smile breaking through his initial apprehension. "Or they might be trying to tell us something more," Jake added, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. Just then, Ellie's phone buzzed with a notification. A message from a viewer had come in, sharing their own family connection to the asylum and ancestor who had been a patient. The viewer expressed gratitude for shedding light on their story and requested further information. Ava exchanged glances with her friends, excitement bubbling within them. "There are more stories to uncover," she said, determination in her voice. "We can't stop here." And so, with the spirits of Windmere Asylum guiding them, they set out on a new journey to continue seeking the truth, to honor the lost, and to ensure that every voice would be heard, no matter how faint. The echoes of the past intertwined with their present, reminding them that while darkness could shroud the truth, the light of compassion and understanding would always prevail. As they prepared for their next adventure, they couldn't help but feel that they were part of something larger, a story that was still being written, one that bridged the realms of the living and the lost. And in that moment, they knew their journey had only just begun. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.